Hey guys, Telegram Sam here. Long time no see. I missed you guys, even though I was only gone for a weekend. But yeah, me and my mom had such a great time up in Washington. It was really nice to go back up there. I haven't been up there in almost a year. So yeah, it was just a really great excuse to be away from work and drink, listen to tunes, barbecue with my family. So I had a really good time. And thanks to everyone who were wishing me well wishes and having a good vacation. So thank you for that. I posted a lot about it too on my Instagram. So if you have Instagram, it's telegram_Sam_vinyl. If you want to check that out, post about music and stuff. So yeah. So before we get into the stuff I got when I was in Washington, I have a few records I'm going to show that I got before I went there. This one's a grail for me. I've been wanting this album for 3 or 5 years now. This is Heart Shaped World by Chris Isaak. This is an original 1989 US press. This album is just a great rockabilly album. I'd say it's a little bit more of a sort of mellow, kind of sad. Like on all the songs he sings, he always sounds like he's on the verge of crying. But this one's famous for having his most well-known song Wicked Game on it. But I really love Chris Isaak. He's a really great singer. He was sort of coined as like the 90s Elvis. I would love to have all of his albums eventually, but I wanted to start off with this one. And this is his third album. And then these next 5 are actually from the subscription box I just started doing. It's vinyl, spelled VNYL. You do this thing online where you like fill out the survey, explain like what kind of music you like, you don't like, and you can also hook up Spotify and like Discogs to it, and they curate your box based off of that. So I decided to try it. It took a while because the first box I was supposed to get ended up getting lost in transit. So this is my first box, and they sent me some extras because of the ones I lost in transit. So the first box came with 5 albums, and then the next one will probably have 4 in it. But yeah, none of these ones I know of except the one which I'll show. But this is Solitary Company by Son of Velvet Rats. This is a 2020 US press, and this was described on Discogs as rock, folk, country, and this is their 10th album, so they're a band that's been around for a while. I haven't listened to these yet, unfortunately, so I can't really say if I like them or not, but still just want to show them. And then this one just came on this really cool blue vinyl. Then next up we got Access by Major Murphy. This was released in 2021, and this is a US and European press. And the thing that scares me about this is that on Discogs, this describes it as pop. I don't usually listen to just pop music. I usually listen to like pop rock, pop punk, pop new wave, pop alternative. So that kind of scares me that it's just described as pop. But looking into the band, they're kind of more, it says they're more of a pop rock indie group, so we'll see. But yeah, this is the second album that they've ever released. They're kind of a newer band. I think they've only been around for the last 5 years or so. And this one came on translucent yellow vinyl. And this is, of course, is the only one I knew. But this is Johnny Cash Sings the Songs That Made Him Famous. This actually originally came out in 1958, and this is a 2015 US press. This was a compilation album Son did after he left the label to go to Columbia Records, but it has I Walk the Line, Train of Love, Big River, some of his classic early hits. And next up we got the self-titled album by Viet Cong. This is a 2015 US press. This was described as rock, punk, noise rock, so that's really exciting. This looks really cool and interesting. I'm really excited to hear it. And this is their debut album. They're a Canadian band. I feel like they've been around for a while, from what I've seen, but they always like change their names. Like this was the only album they released under Vietcong, and then they changed their band name like 3 times after that, so that's kind of interesting. And then next up we got Moods Baby Moods, Sunny and the Sunsets. This is a 2016 US press, and this is described as rock, new wave, funk, so that's very intriguing to me. And this is their 11th album. Yeah, this just looks really cool. I'm probably most intrigued about this one from all the ones that they sent me. This record's really cool. This really nice opaque orange with these funny labels on them. But yeah, I've been looking into all the different kinds of like vinyl subscription boxes, and this one just looked the most interesting because they send you, obviously it's curated off of what you like. A lot of other ones they'll just send you something that's like VMP just sends you whatever they're going to do. But it's really cool that they're sending you stuff that isn't really well known and from smaller bands, which I really enjoy, and from newer bands. Even though I love my older music, that's what I mainly listen to is like stuff from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I really want to try and get more into newer music and what's out there currently, so that's a kind of cool way to do it. And it's not that expensive either. I think for the 3 records every month, it's only $40, so that's a pretty good deal. All right, Washington stuff now. So the first place I went to is this really great new record store in Bellingham, Washington. It's at the northern part of Washington. I think it's like an hour away from the Canadian border. But this awesome record store called Black Noise Records. I think the guy told me they'd only been open for like 2 or 3 months, so they're very new. It's a smaller store, not the biggest selection in the world, but I found a lot of great used funk soul. They have a really nice funk soul rap electronic section. The rock section isn't that big, and they don't have they had like a really small punk section, and they also had a really big jazz section. So really cool if you're in the area. I definitely recommend, and everything was very reasonably priced. I don't think I paid more, at least for the used stuff I got there. I don't think I paid more than like $12 for a record. I did get one new reissue that was like $30, but anyways, let's get into it. Graham Central Station. This is an original 1974 US press. This is an essential funk soul record. I mean, you have Larry Graham on here, who kind of innovated the whole slap bass sound. He was part of Sly and the Family Stone. This was the first album he made after he left Sly and the Family Stone. This one has that song Hair, and it goes, "Is that really all your hair?" And it's such a essential funk album, killer album. And then next is a punk album, Mission of Burma Forget. This was originally released in 1988. I couldn't find a date on here, but I think it's a late 90s, early 2000s repress. But this is a band I've heard about in the punk hardcore scene, but I've never really listened to. So yeah, very interested in this. And this is a comp album from what I've seen, so interested to see what that's about. And this one came on a translucent red vinyl. I'm not going to be showing and going too in-depth about all the records I got because there's a lot here. And if I were to do that, this would just be like a 3-hour video. And I don't want to bore you guys to death. So, sorry, it's not going to be as in-depth as some of my other recent vinyl pickups videos. Next we got Love Is Back by Love Unlimited. I recently found, this album. I blind bought this earlier this year, but their album In Heat. I love this album. This is a great album, and I just saw this for really cheap there. This is a 1979 Canadian press. Great soul, disco, funk. This was their 5th and last studio album. Love Unlimited was famously sort of Barry White's side project. He produced all their records, wrote all the songs on their records. His wife, Glodine James, was one of the members, along with her sister and her cousin, and they did backup vocals for all Barry White's albums and when he was on concert. So very cool, interesting, not very well known soul group. And then next up, we got Living For You by Al Green. Man, Al Green was such a big part of my growing up. My mom had his greatest hits record, the one where he's like shirtless and he's wearing those like white pants and he's like doing the finger guns pointing thing. I know that album like the back of my hand. I could tell you every song. I know the words to every song on the album. And I don't have any Al Green in my record collection, so this was just something I saw there and was like, I need Al Green in my life, so I got it. This is a 1973 US press. Again, great funk soul. And this was his 7th studio album. And then this is the one reissue I did get there. This is It Takes a Nation of a Million to Hold Us Back. This is originally came out in 1988, and this is a 2013 European reissue. I mean, this is just essential hip-hop, rap, very activist-based sound to it and lyrics. I mean, just this album is just so important. And it was their second album, and it was famously produced by Rick Rubin for Def Jam Records. And then next, I have been looking for War for such a long time because I always get so jealous when I see other people's like thrift store vinyl hauls and like they find every War record, and it's like impossible even in record stores to find a War record. But this was actually sealed there. This is the Youngblood soundtrack that War did. I don't know anything about this movie, but it came out in 1978, and this is a U.S. press. Funk soul, the typical War sound. And this was War's 11th album and the first and only soundtrack I believe they ever did. But I'm very excited and interested to listen to this. And then I think I saw someone post a picture of this album on Instagram. But this is Incredible by Hodges, James, and Smith. This is a 1973 US press funk soul album. This was their debut album. I think they only released like 2 or 3 albums after this. They were kind of promoted as like the next Supremes, but it ended up not really going anywhere. But yeah, I just love this cover. It's really cool. And they kind of remind me of Love Unlimited, so excited to see what that sounds like. And this was the only rock album I got while I was there. They didn't really have a lot of great rock selection, but everyone and their mother was showing the one-step version of this a couple of months ago, so I got it. This is Blood, Sweat, and Tears self-titled album. This originally came out in 1968, but this is a 1980 US press. This is sort of categorized as like jazz, rock, psychedelic. This was their second studio album. I actually just listened to this for the first time last night, and I really liked it. I was kind of nervous because that whole jazz rock thing for some bands either sounds really good or sounds really bad, but they really figured it out on this album. This is really fantastic. I bet those one steps are even more amazing. This was only like $3, so I decided to take the plunge, and I'm really happy with it. So alright, so that was all I got from Black Noise. And then this next group of records was down the street from Black Noise. It's actually like literally only 2 blocks. There's this antique store. It's a 2-story antique store, and on the bottom is this place called Aladdin's Antiques and Records. And it was kind of sketchy because when me and my mom were like walking to it, we saw the sign pointing down to this really like sketchy like homemade like wooden staircase that was like surrounded by blackberry bushes. And we were like, is this like the right way to go? But the sign's pointing, so we kind of like went down it, and then it kind of just like looked like a junkyard, just like all this like sort of wrecked, and like there was a telephone booth and like all these old TV sets and like these huge radio things from like the 40s and 50s. and we're like, is this the right way to go? Like, are we gonna get murdered? And then you have to like walk down this like dark corridor that just has stuff like stacked to the brim, and then you finally see this door where it leads into this, you know, huge amazing antique store, and you had to walk all the way to the back, and it's like records until like as long as you could see. That's probably the most records I've ever seen in one place. It was kind of like overwhelming. But yeah, they had an amazing selection of things, very fair price. It was all mostly used. I think I only saw a couple of like reissue things of newer albums. But yeah, highly recommend if you're in the Bellingham area, Aladdin's Antiques and Records. First thing I saw was Listen Like Thieves by INXS. This is an original 1985 US press. This is their typical new wave pop rock thing. I love the album Kick by INXS. I would say it's probably my third all-time favorite album. It's just perfect top to bottom. And I've been meaning to get more INXS because I love that one so much. This one doesn't have a lot of hits on it. Kind of the only one I really recognize is Listen Like Thieves and Kiss the Dirt. This was their fifth studio album, the one they released before Kick, so I'm interested to see the comparison of those two records. So, and this one I was so excited for. Out of everything I got, I think I'm the most excited about this, even though this is like a $2 or $3 record. This is Feliciano by Jose Feliciano. This originally came out in 1968. I think this is probably a mid to late 1970s US press based off of the RCA label. But I would describe this as a great mix of Latin, folk rock, pop rock, and with like a little tinge of soul to it. Jose Feliciano is a Puerto Rican blind guitar player and singer. He is incredible. He's most known for doing the original version of the Christmas song Feliz Navidad. I have been looking for this record for such a long time. It's such a cheap record, like you can find most of these for like $2 or $3. But I've been looking for it, and I didn't want to find it on Discogs because I'm like, I know these are cheap, they're everywhere. And I finally found one that wasn't scratched beyond belief. But yeah, this is mainly just a covers album. He does like Beatles, The Doors, Jerry and the Pacemaker songs, and he does amazing version of California Dreamin' by Mamas and the Papas. I personally like his version better than the original Mamas and the Papas version. It's incredible. Like, I really want to get more of Jose Feliciano's albums, but this is just his most popular and well-known album. So happy to finally have this. And then I just got this classic, Draw the Line by Aerosmith. This is original 1977 US press, and man, this thing is so clean. This was actually still partially in the shrink wrap when I found it. Obviously the side was cut, and you know, where someone was, you know, still able to listen to it. I mean, the inner sleeve is like in perfect condition. And same thing with the album. The album looked like maybe it had been played once or twice before it was kind of just put back onto someone's shelf for 40 years. But yeah, this is killer, you know, typical 70s Aerosmith hard rock, fifth studio album from them. The only other Aerosmith I have is Rocks and Toys in the Attic, so this is a nice collection, or addition to my Aerosmith collection. And then next we got Panorama by The Cars. I don't have any of the Cars stuff yet. This was really cheap. I think it was only like $3. This is original 1980 US press. This is their typical rock, new wave synth pop sound, and this was their third studio album. I don't recognize any of these songs as being hits, but Any Cars is good Cars, so I'm really happy to finally have this. Next up, we got something I've been looking for, again, for a really long time. That's very cheap. This is Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid soundtrack that was done by Bob Dylan. It's funny because a month or two ago, I saw a reissue of this at a record store, and I almost bought it, but I'm like, ugh, the originals are so easy to find and really cheap. I'm kind of going to wait and see if I can try and find an original. And man, this thing is like in perfect condition. The sleeve is great. It's like that really nice like raised emboss cover, and the record's in perfect condition. But yeah, this is original 1973 U.S. press, and this is a very folk rock, country rock album from Bob Dylan. This has his original version of Knocking on Heaven's Door, which I love. That's probably one of my favorite Bob Dylan songs. But yeah, his 12th studio album and his first soundtrack, great, amazing. I am just so happy to finally have this. And then this next batch of records, I got in my hometown. We were going into town to see a music festival that the city puts on every year. The first weekend of September. Obviously, they didn't have one last year, and this was their first year back from COVID. And Larkin Poe even play there, which is like a pretty big band. Like, even I knew who they were. And they're a great sister duo who mainly do sort of blues rock, southern rock, I would say. So yeah, before we went there, we went to the store, this antique store. I'm not even going to give them a shout out because the guy that runs it was such a prick and such like a mansplaining asshole to me the entire time I was there. And he just like wouldn't leave me alone, and was like telling me stuff that was like, I knew that wasn't true. Like, he kept on trying to tell me that Station to Station by David Bowie was his first album before he was famous, and I was like, no, that was like his like 12th record and like his 4th after Ziggy Stardust, which was his most famous record. He's like, oh no, that's not true, you're wrong. And like trying to tell me like how to put records into a sleeve. I'm like, God, dude, leave me alone. I'm just trying to look through these records. And he would leave me alone for like 5 minutes and then come back and like bug me again and just be super like condescending and like talking to me like I know nothing. Not like I know everything, but it's just like, I'm not stupid. I know you think I'm young and I'm a woman and that I don't know anything, but I got it, dude. But there was some cool stuff there that I got, and the prices were like okay. I probably paid a little too much for some of these, but some of these I just never see anywhere else, so had to pick them up. First off, we got the Moody Blues, A Question of Balance. This originally came out in 1970, but I think this is a later 70s repress. But this is rock, pop, prog. This is kind of like their first album, moving away from their like psychedelic pop garage sound, because they kind of wanted stuff that would be more easier to play at concerts. And I don't have any Moody Blues, so this is like a cool introduction to them. And plus, I just really love this cover. But yeah, this is their 6th album. Really great. I'm excited to finally have some more prog. I don't really have a lot of 70s prog in my collection, so I'm excited to start off with them. Next up, we got J.J. Cale, 1979 U.S. press. I can't remember who I saw show this record, but I know someone on the VC showed it, and I just can't remember who it was, and was like raving about it. But yeah, this is sort of considered a rock, folk rock, blues rock record. This was J.J. Cale's 5th studio album. Eric Clapton and Mark Knopfler and Neil Young were very influenced by him. Eric Clapton has even covered a couple of his songs. So I'm very interested to hear what this sounds like, and I really love this cool like $5 cover. And then next up we got Newborn by James Gang. I don't have any James Gang. The only thing I really know about James Gang is that was the band Joe Walsh was in before he left to go play with the Eagles. But this is a 1975 U.S. press. This one's sort of considered hard rock, blues rock. This was their 8th studio album, and this was their first without Tommy Bolin and Ray Kenner. But yeah, I just really love this awesome Salvador Dali painting that is on here, so it looked cool. I bought it. And then next up, this was a blind buy as well. This is Good News by Sweet Honey and the Rock. This is sort of described as gospel, funk, soul. This is a private press album. And this was the 3rd album they ever did, and this was recorded live at a church in Washington, D.C. And yeah, I don't know, this just looked really cool. from what I've read online, it's mainly an a cappella group made of all African American women, so that's really cool. So I'm excited to see what this sounds like. I mean, it could be nothing, it could be everything. And I've never seen this before or seen anyone else shown this, but this is EC Was Here by Eric Clapton. This is a live album he did. This is the original 1975 US press, you know, his typical rock blues sound that he was doing at the time. And this was recorded at shows in California, New York, and London. There's only 6 songs on here, so and they're all like 5 to 7 minutes long, so I'm assuming it's probably mainly just him like jamming on guitar. But I was like, man, I've never seen this Eric Clapton album before. And the only other Eric Clapton album I have is his Ocean Boulevard album, which I like. So yeah, cool little addition. And this one's really cool. This is Dwayne Eddy and the Rebels. This is just self-titled. This is a West German 1983 pressing of his album. I think it's In Person. That originally came out in 1963, but it's just sort of labeled as just a Dwayne Eddy and the Rebels self-titled album. But the really cool thing about this is that it came on white vinyl. I don't think I've ever seen white vinyl pressed before the 2000s, so that's really cool because there was like colored vinyl in the 70s and 80s, but most of the time it's very translucent, like reds, yellows, greens. Sometimes you find clear ones, but I've never seen a super opaque white album like this before, that was pressed before the 2000s, 2010s. So really cool West German pressing of Dwayne Eddy and the Rebels. And plus, I don't have any Dwayne Eddy at all, so that's really cool. Next up, we got Mystery to Me by Fleetwood Mac. Originally came out in 1973. This is a 1977 US repress. I don't have any Fleetwood Mac that doesn't feature Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, so this is my first pre-Nicks and Buckingham Fleetwood Mac album. I think this was like the second to last one before they came and joined the band. So I'm interested to hear that sound from them. This is considered rock, soft rock. This is their 8th studio album. I really want to get some of their earlier stuff that has like Peter Green in it. That's kind of more experimental rock. This is kind of like a nice stepping stone to that. And the last album, this was actually sealed when I got it, but this is Encore by Tangerine Dream. This is a live album of various collections of various songs they did throughout their US 1977 tour. But this is their 10th major release and their second live album. Tangerine Dream is a great ambient German electronic band. They did a lot of like movie soundtracks in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s. Very prolific in the electronic ambient scene, so cool to find this, and it wasn't that expensive. But yeah, that was all I got these last 2 weeks in the big haul for my Washington trip. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.